So before the break, we heard from Steve, and Steve was talking about, like, you know, cost benefit about 5G and Wi-Fi. Are you going to prop up 100 Wi-Fis over a site that costs 20,000 per pylon with men working at height, or do one private network? The answer is pretty logical, private 5G. Anyway, next we have...
Right, should we just end it there? Done, let's go.
Thank you very much for coming. Right, next speaker, Chris, welcome. Enterprise Architect, Willmott Dixon. Chris is going to talk about site connectivity, overcoming productivity, and basic requirements for boosting productivity, building the case for change. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Oh, can we scan that? Sorry.
So, yes.
You might need to.
Yeah.
Sorry, just go back.
And are we going to go through this at the slide over the end?
That's for the panel session.
Panel session,
Yeah. So questions as we go. Yeah.
Great. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So, a root cause of construction's productivity stagnation is the lack of connectivity in our workplace. Advances in digitalisation have left construction behind. The digital productivity improvements that other industries have leveraged to automate tasks, processes, have simply just not been realised in construction on site. And it's at that key point of production, from our perspective, where 75% of our spend of our build's going through. So it's critical we get connectivity there at site. So I'm Chris Johnston. I work for Willmott Dixon. We're a main contractor, family-owned business. We've been operating since 1852. Turnover 1.4 billion. I've been in the industry for 25 years from a traditional architectural background, 15 years of digital construction before moving over to an EA role 3 years ago to help to support a digital transformation strategic initiative that we had in our business. So today, I'm really going to be talking about the one of those foundational blockers that we need to overcome to help to start improve productivity in construction. So going to talk around Willmott Dixon's context, what our future vision is, that future state that we really want to get to, those challenges, a bit of a health check really, and I'm going to pick on the last two projects that I've worked on at Willmott Dixon, actually on site. This is 3 years ago, so unfortunately these were really bad examples of how bad it can be, but I'll use those as examples. And then I'm going to talk about the size of the prize, or the opportunity I think that we have in construction. So, typical Willmott Dixon, or the context of Willmott Dixon, typical year. We have 100 sites, 70,000 suppliers going on those sites every year. Quarter of our jobs at some stage or at some point have really limited connectivity or mobile connectivity. Typically, we have a 120-day wait for a line to go in. That's our average. And our provider, who I will say nameless, misses their install date by 80% more than 3 times. So on 80% of our projects, our supplier has missed their install date by 3 times. So in amongst that, we also now have our 3G switch off that's happening. So Vodafone, I know they're starting to switch off already. We've got EE, they are also switching off early 2024, so I think it's probably already affecting people on site. 3 plans to switch, 3 mobiles going to switch off by the end of 2024. And O2, which is supposed to be switching off by the end of 2025. I know that's happening because in my area, it's the only signal I can get is a 3G signal, and I've got no data with it at all. So they're already doing this. So our future vision, Willmott Dixon, where we want to get to. So we've been thinking about this in a lot recently, and we want to work towards more of using an elemental breakdown of a building. We want to work towards a manufacturing approach on site. And so moving beyond what they were talking about earlier, moving beyond what this work package view of construction is down to an elemental view of construction, actually out on site. So what that means though for an operative actually on site and a day in the life as a site operative, for them, it's simply they pass through the turnstile, we'd like them to be able to scan a QR code that will assign them to the location where they've got all the materials at their location, with another QR code that they're able to access all the assembly instructions, drawings, specifications. It's all of it, everything that they need to do their job is there available for them. They complete the work, or they go through and do their QC process. That then is automatically notifies the main contractor that the work's complete. We go through and do our workmanship, our quality assurance check. After that's completed, we want to go to automatic payment, then release that area for the following trades and repeat. Repeat, repeat, repeat. That drumbeat that you have in manufacturing processes, we want to be able to replicate that on the construction site. Now, but the fundamental problem is we need connectivity to be able to achieve that. So for us, we need that data rate that's tied back to the elements so we can actually better plan our activities. We need our suppliers, they want certainty that the workplace is going to be available. So we need that granular data to be able to predict pace on site so we can then plan for the other parties to come through. And with that granular data, so we can predict pace very early on, we can help to see when teams are starting to fall behind and help them to take corrective action to be able to change and actually meet what their targeted completion dates are. So for our supply chain owners, when we speak to them, they love that objective data. It really helps them to focus in on the areas of improvement where they need to make changes and helps them to be a better partner. But it's all fundamentally dependent on reliable connectivity at the workplace. So these two typical jobs that my last two jobs that I was on. One was in Luton, just on the outskirts of Luton. It's 11 minutes to the central city. Another one was on a university campus in the Midlands. I'll leave both actual projects nameless. But the Luton job, first day I turned up to let the site team know I've arrived. I couldn't even bloody make a phone call. I could not even get a hold of the team because I didn't have enough connectivity to actually connect, to actually make a phone. And we were only 11 minutes from the city, but unfortunately, we just happened to be out of the line of sight. It was a small hill blocking the connection to the actual site. We had to wait on that job 13 months for a line to get in with BT. We could see from the cabinet, from the site office, looking out the window, we could see the cabinet on the neighbouring property sitting just outside. But it took that amount of time to actually get that line in. We had great plans for doing a Wi-Fi trial on site and providing connectivity to all the locations throughout that build. But we ended up having to drop it because it took so long to be able to actually get that line in. We did run some Wi-Fi trials, and if we have some time, we'll talk about them and some of the lessons that we've learned at the end after this. Midlands University, it was a main campus, but right from the start of that project, we knew we couldn't get a line into that job. There was a customer restriction. We simply couldn't get a line in until we were getting that line going in through to the main site and to the main build. And there was that point that we could finally get a line actually into that site office. So their mobile signal quality was intermittent, and I assume it was probably because of the numbers of students that you had actually on the campus. Some days it would work, other days it was absolutely appalling and you couldn't get anything. And it was a £40 million build. And we didn't help ourselves because when it came to the point of actually ordering the connection that we needed for the 4G signal, it was left up to a surveyor. Surveyor then takes the option, and they basically they are incentivized to save as much money as possible, and they got a piece of a home grade equipment that we tried to have. We had to basically run that whole build through. Now, we've since changed that as a policy, but it still happens. Even when it's a standard and the policy across our business, we still have surveyors that will go and value engineer the lines out that have been mandated for that build. So, poor connectivity on site. What it impacts, when you go to site, you can't even make Teams calls. We're back to the main office, back with suppliers. Even the documentation that I needed to use to when we have supply chain meetings with partners on site, when placing orders and things like that, I wasn't able to go get because I didn't have that information. Clash detection, even though I'd be preparing that information for a clash detection workshop with your supply chain partners on site that you'd be running, inevitably there was always one partner that would be never release their information in time until they're just coming to site. We couldn't pull that into the environment because you couldn't download it to be able to check, and they're always using that excuse, oh, that was resolved in the latest update that we just issued this morning. I was also running virtual walkthroughs with the customer so that they could help to, and with the end users of the building, so they could help to assess that building functionality and actually review the materials that they were selecting in the context of the whole building. But again, it all needed to be prepared days in advance because I couldn't get that information when I was actually at site. And there were a couple of times, because I've been able to do this in other projects, right, and the next thing you know, I forget to have prepared, and we went there, I wasn't able to prepare it for that meeting. So it catches you out all the time. Some other ridiculous things. I had site engineers that were doing point cloud scanning, floor flatness, wall flatness analysis. They would do the scans, they could process it in the office, but they'd end up having to drive back home to then publish the results to a supply chain partner who would get the results and have to travel home to actually get that information to be able to make use of it. So it causes a huge amount of extra effort for everybody. So the impact, moving on, so Steve said this before, there's two very different things. There's impact in the site office, but there's also impact actually out on site. And that impact of poor connectivity on site, your example, Steve, 45 minutes is bad, but typically this is a 15-minute walk. When somebody's at the top of the building and they need to check the latest set of drawings and they haven't got any connection and they can't be able to get that information, they take another 15 minutes out of their day, complete waste of time, go back to the site office to be able to get that information. And that's happening every day on our construction sites. Just a small scenario that was a typical scenario that happens on site. This was at the Midlands University job. I was scanning as-built. We were trying to get the voids closed. Supply chain partner had installed ducts, a big section of duct wrong. They were standing around as we were doing the scanning, talking about how they were going to overcome it with these other services that were going through. Effectively designing on site. I knew that there was another set of drawings that had been issued because I just downloaded them the night before going to site. The paper ones that they were working with on site were completely out. So they'd already solved the problem back in their own office, even issued it to their teams. But because they didn't have the connectivity actually at site, they were going ahead and about to do another new design, which will have implications for the next party that's going to come on and do their services work. So, but that kind of rework that's been caused because of no connectivity on site and not having the right information to hand, every single day of rework, or every single time we have rework that happens, it costs you 3 days. It costs you a day to actually do the original install, a day to do the rework, and then there's a day of catch-up because you should have been doing something else during that time as well. So rework has quite a large hidden cost that people just don't appreciate. Then when it comes to our quality control and quality assurance process that was happening, because people didn't have signals on site, they started reverting to things like using just their mobile phones, going out and taking the photographs on their mobile phone, taking it back to the office, and then syncing their phone back to their PC so they could actually start filling out all the quality control forms. Huge waste of time, and it created extra waste in that process. And unfortunately, because of that's happening now, that behaviour is starting to happen on more and more projects we're starting to see. But the biggest opportunity I think we have really is around that daily productivity and opportunity. So getting to the point of those instant handovers between people and the parties on site, because you have the connectivity and you're able to share it across, share between those parties. So that's around those daily routines. We're regularly wasting half days on site. When a supplier completes their work, we don't actually go around to check that work is being completed until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they could have completed at 10 o'clock in the morning. there's a huge gap there in the process where there is opportunity to get the next party in to be able to start their work, and next trade in to start their work. So, on-site digital transformation, and what's that blocker? So when Amador or myself, when we are having to make selections, we have to do considerations about making choices for our whole enterprise, we have to work to that lowest common denominator. And unfortunately, even though Steve said 2024 is where we are, I think Willmott Dixon, and I suspect probably most contractors, are still in 2014, and we still have lots of individual point solutions that need to work offline. And those individual point solutions that working offline, that's a workaround, and it's adding more waste into the process. It's frustrating, but that's creating more and more time. Just to re-emphasise that point, each one of those standalone systems that we use is, when we use data is part of a process and part of a process chain. And so we use it in one system, it creates a piece of data. We have to copy and move it to the next system to be able to process it, to be able to prepare the information, and then add it to the next system. And so we end up, because we have got point solutions as part of that overall process, we triple the amount of time that will triple the amount of work we need for our teams on site. So one of the key lessons that I learned from when I used to work in architectural practices was that changeover when that BIM moment that we had. Now, we used to have AutoCAD, we had Word, we had Excel, and when you looked at something like Revit or ArchiCAD, they didn't compare to the drafting detailing that you could do on AutoCAD. It wasn't a replacement for Word, it wasn't a replacement for Excel, but when you pulled together an integrated environment, it meant the change that you did in that environment, if you made a change in your floor plan and you deleted a door, it was going to update your schedules. And it would update your specification as well, because we used to have our specs linked into that environment. So you had this integrated type solution where change in one place changed everywhere. Construction's on sites never had that integrated moment yet, because we don't have digital connectivity on site. I think you can clearly see it. These charts are old now, but we are estimating, we want to get to that vision. We're almost talking 50,000 days worth of our supply chain a year on site. There is this opportunity if we can work to a digital integrated way of working. And the integrated way of working is only achievable if we can have digitalisation on site. And you can see the gap between construction, the yellow line here, and the rest of the other industries. And it's at this point here, it's where digitalisation started happening. And it's that 75% of our spend is going through that point. The bit that we've been trying to digitise is the smaller part of the pie. It's a much bigger part of the pie is happening there on site. And that's the bit where we need to focus our attention if we're going to start changing productivity in construction. So site-wide connectivity, I think, is absolutely a major enabler. And it may be a very difficult discussion for us when we're trying to sell this to directors, but we need that future vision, understand what it is that we're working towards, and then we can help to build this case to be able to get there. So our requirement is quite simple. We just need day one connectivity, because we need to have on-site, we need it on-site, we need it in the office, we need it across all sites. It needs to be reliable, cost-effective, and accessible to everyone. All right. So, thank you. I think we're taking questions at the end. How are we going for time?
They should be typing their things in. You're right on time. Well done.
Okay, good.
Do anyone want to ask questions now? Because we've got a bit of time, actually. Do you want a question?
For me?
Did you have your hand up?
No,
Just
no,
point
I'm
it, it's
with
fine.
him.
Yeah,
I take questions of him.
I was worried.
Like an option, don't move.
I told him not to heckle me.
Slide, so I can take a photo of you of that. That's fine, thank you.
Certainly.
Then if you go back one slide, sorry.
The slide.
That's it. I just think that's a really
Smile.
good slide. Thank you.
So I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So Willmott Dixon, I mean, you'll have lots of subcontractors, and you'll probably have more professional people on your sites than you'll have people actually doing the work, I would imagine, similar to Wales. So when you say accessible to everyone on that slide there, are you meaning Everyone at Willmott Dixon, plus everybody else in your supply chain.
Everyone, yes, everyone in the supply chain, absolutely, it must be, it's that supply chain, that's where the opportunity is for us. That's it. It's not as much about Willmott Dixon, we're operating, albeit not as good as we should be, but that opportunity is absolutely, it's in the suppliers and helping them and lifting that productivity at that point.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you all.
Sure.